Hey everyone, welcome to Coffee and Darts. This is episode 57, and as you saw on the bumper there, we've got Larry the Eagle Butler here, and I am super excited about that. Before we bring him on, and we're going to do that quickly, I just want to thank my sponsors. So I want to thank Shot Darts, of course. Great darts, great manufacturer, and if you saw yesterday, they sent me a little package. We got some new darts to go ahead and do some reviews on, and then, of course, Magicwear, who provides us with these incredible jerseys. So thank you to both of them, and, of course, Condor Darts with their Axe system, the flight and shaft combination unit that they've got there. Of course, they've come on to help sponsor the show as well. So let's just get into this. We're going to get Larry on, but I just so you guys know who this gentleman is and how excited I am about having him on here to talk. But here's a little bit about the Eagle. He is the only American to win PDC World Major, and that was back in 1994 with the match play. He was also in the Win More Masters final. He has the most ADO points titles. He has the most Darts Live America Tour titles and the most Championship Darts Circuit titles. In the match play, just so that you guys know, he beat the likes of Jockey Wilson and then current world champion Priestley 16-12 to win a whopping 10,000 pounds. But let's bring Larry on and get into the talking of darts. Hey, Larry, thanks for joining me.
My pleasure, Matthew. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm excited. Like we were talking a little ahead of time. I'm super excited to have you on. I love darts, and of course, I love talking with those that play darts. And you're like way up here as far as American darts goes in my mind. And so I'm really excited to have the opportunity to talk to you. So let's just jump right in. I'm going to just throw some questions out at you that we had a lot to cover. I mean, you've been playing darts for a number of years, and of course, we've got we got the World Cup starting with Chuck and Donnie. That's tomorrow. You've played darts. Let's just get into it. But how did you get into darts? Where did that come from?
Actually, I when I was 17, I joined the Navy, and after all my A schools, B schools, C schools, and I got stationed in Washington, D.C. I was with the Naval Electronic Systems Security Engineering Center, and from there, they sent me all around the world to install secure data communication equipment. One of the places I went was Edsall, Scotland, which I've spent almost every night in a little place called the Angus Steakhouse in Brecon, which was it was the biggest town that had anything next to Edsall, and that's where I picked up darts.
So nice. It's a funny thing. I grew up. My dad was a chief, so I'm in San Diego. My dad was a chief, and he picked up darts playing in Rota, Spain, because he was stationed there for a number of years.
I went there as well for one of my jobs. Yeah. I went for like a little over 4 years, where I wasn't within 1,000 miles of where I was at 3 months earlier.
That was the Navy back then. So, right. But yeah, so I grew up. We always had a dartboard in my house, and that's where it came from. Is my dad would hang out at a pub there. He was into darts, and he was into Porsche racing back then, which never showed up here, which bummed me out. I'm like, "Where's the Porsche?" I mean, he's like, "I could bring the darts back, but not the Porsche." I was like, "Okay." So we got into darts. So I assume that was steel tip, because I don't think over in Europe, even currently, that they know what soft tip is. So it was steel tip at the time. So you bring that back and you get into darts. Were you playing competitively while you were over there still in the Navy, or was it just kind of the fun hanging out with the guys?
Well, actually, I had two different stops in Edsall for 3 months each time. In my second stop, I actually I won a tournament at the Angus Steakhouse, and remember, I won a bottle of whiskey or something. But I was playing fairly decent then. I didn't really get that was late 70s. I mean, I didn't really I didn't play that much. I started playing some leagues in the early 80s, but wasn't really playing any tournaments. And then around 83, 84, I started playing some tournaments. And it wasn't really till about 87 or 88, 86, 7, 8, somewhere in there, I started getting pretty good. And then by 88, I was like I think it was 88 or 89. I was either 1 or 2 in the country and stayed there until about 95.
Nice. Just so you know, Wikipedia says you started darts in 1977. So
that would be from the Angus Steakhouse, yeah.
Okay. All right. So nice. And of course, we have Angus Steakhouses here in Southern California, but they're not related in any way, shape, or form. So, so you got into steel tip. You're playing along. You come back to the States. Life's going. You're doing darts. When did soft tip become something that you started playing? Was that much later on, or was that soon after you kind of came back to the States?
A little bit about the history of soft tip. The machines themselves were made in the late 70s, but they didn't have any kind of widespread exposure at all until the late 80s, really. I mean, the bull shooter, well, I don't know. The bull shooter probably started in mid to late 80s. Maybe, actually, I think there was a smaller bull shooter like 82, 83, 84, but my first one was either 89 or 90. My buddy and my dart partner, Jerry Umberger, talked me into going there, and we ended up winning the doubles cricket there like 3 or 4 times, something like that.
Very nice. So yeah, and those that don't know the history of soft tip, it really was kind of the 70s-ish that we really started to see soft tip make a splash, and then it was definitely the 80s where it really took off here in America. Out of the two, do you have a favorite?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, steel tip, to me, and I'm going to piss a lot of people off here, but to me,
that's okay.
The real version, soft tip's the toy version.
Yeah. There's one particular gentleman who's not watching right now, I don't think, but he only plays soft tip, and he hates the fact that people think that way. But you know, hey, you know,
it's kind of like England plays snooker, we play 8-ball. You know, it's a very similar analogy. You know.
Yeah. No, and I mean, everybody, you know, that's the beauty of America, is we can all have our opinions like that. So,
I mean, you're getting a really small ball and a really small pocket, and in 8-ball, you've got a much bigger ball and a much bigger pocket. So,
yeah, and they're both fun, and that's really what matters.
Snooker table's like 15 foot, and ours is like 8 feet.
we like to make things really big and short. You know, that's kind of our style. So, so steel tip's more your thing, but you've done well with soft tip. You've certainly played it. Do you find going back and forth between the two somewhat challenging, or is it like just like butter for you, like no big deal?
Could be because I don't play it all the time. Almost every time I picked up soft tip darts to go to a tournament, I'm not playing that well, and then I practice for a few days. It usually. Like at the bull shooter in Chicago, I won 1 Top Gun just a few years ago. That's just like the only thing I ever won there before Monday. But by Monday, I mean, I've won the pro singles 3 times. I won the pro doubles cricket 5 times. And I mean, I'm playing pretty good by Monday, but it takes me a few days to get orient or get the stroke down. Because soft tip, you really do have to throw the dart properly. You have to stroke it properly. And usually after a soft tip tournament, I'm playing better steel tip too, because it gets my fundamentals better. You know,
I've heard that quite a bit. You know, and I've noticed it in I play soft tip with my son primarily. We do play steel tip occasionally, and that's exciting. But you know, I've noticed that, you know, when I play the soft tip, because I guess there's. I don't know if you throw it lighter or, you know, I don't know
what it's about. Yeah. You know? I mean, Dennis Priestley, when he was number 1 in the world, he was throwing like a 12-gram dart or something, which was less than half the weight of what I was throwing.
It's kind of like bunting. You know, I like those darts are funny. So, do you have different weights then for your soft tip or steel tip, or are they pretty much the same?
Yeah, I mean, they used to have a limit of like 18 grams or something. I know. Yeah. Darts Live went up to like 25 grams, but I think the Arachnid is still 18 or 19 grams, somewhere in that range.
Yeah, I believe it's between 18 and 21. So, you know, there is a difference. Like, I try and keep my weights right around like 20 grams for both, just because I flip back and forth so much. I'm like, you know, Speaking of which, guys, I just want to throw this out here real quick, and Larry's sorry to kind of barge into our conversation, but I mentioned this on Tuesday, and I'm bringing this back up, guys. There is a gentleman out there, Michael Holdman, who's a fan of the show. He's a darts guy, East Coast guy. His son is raising goods for our veterans in need, our homeless veterans. So go to Michael Holdman's page, check out my page. I'm giving away stuff for those that buy something. So if you go to his page and you purchase something, his son is doing this. It could be a toaster, it could be a bedding, something that's going to go to our veterans who are homeless right now. They're trying to get a bunch of stuff to give to these guys. I'm going to be giving away a set of the Atomic Darts hat stuff. I also have a set of Larry's barrels. These are soft tip. These are the 3s. So it's a slightly older version, but I'm going to be throwing these in with that package. So head over there, buy something, help our veterans out, and you're going to get a killer package from me. You've got 5 days left. We'll be doing that drawing. Sorry, Larry, to
no, that's awesome.
On that.
I'm all for that.
Yeah. No, this is a gentleman who's been watching. Like, I did an 18-hour marathon of darts where I started at 6 a.m. and ended at midnight. And just played darts. And this gentleman watched me the whole time. We talked the whole time. Like when I was getting tired, he's like, okay, let's do this. And he's just been a great fan of the show. And his son is working with this brother Vinny over on the East Coast. And they are basically outfitting 50 or so homeless veterans with just an outfit for their house, for an apartment.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So I jumped on board and I said, hey, I'm going to, let's give some stuff away if you guys will go purchase that. Don't buy my stuff at my store. Go buy that. I'll live, So thank you for letting me barge in with that. So let's talk. I'd love to hear more about the match play because, you're the only American to win a PDC basically title. And I'm excited to hear about that because that to me as an American, I'm like, yes, at least we got one. What was that like? The truth of the matter is I don't think anybody expected you to win it. And you showed up and you powered through that. You beat the likes of Jockey. You beat Priestley in the final. What was that like?
At that time, Dennis was number 1 in the world and Phil was number 2 in the world. And Dennis, I think he was like 8 or 9 to 1 to win the whole thing. Walking in the door before the tournament. When I showed up, I was 60 to 1. But the reason I was 60 to 1 was because the day before, when they opened the betting, I was 200 to 1. And some guy by the name of Jimmy the Tailor, who says, I actually met this guy. He made suits for sporting figures. He put 100 pounds on me at 200 to 1.
So he made more money than you made.
He made twice what I did. Yeah.
Okay. Too bad you couldn't bet on yourself, huh?
Well, we could back then. I had 20 pounds on myself. So
there you go. So that lightened that. That made that pot really nice. There you go.
Well, the one that killed me was that in the first round in the players' room, I'm warming up, and Steve Raw was his first time to be on any stage at all, and I could see how nervous he was and everything, and he was the favorite. The bookies had me at 200 to 1. They had him as the favorite. And just seeing how nervous he was, I went down and put a 20-pound bet on myself to win 8-0 and 20 pounds to win 8-1. and I was up like 5-0. And I think it was like 3 or 4-0. And then he threw like a 12-dart game or something. No, I think it was up like 5-0. He threw like a 12-dart game. And then I'm like, dang, I just lost a bunch of money there. Because it would have paid like 5,000 and 3,000 or something. So I said, well, I'm still going to get the other one. And I get up to like 7-1. And then I miss like 6 or 7 darts at a double. And I was like, because I'm thinking about this ticket. And he takes it out. And then I was just, oh no. And I'm really upset. And then the next, I just got so mad at myself. My next 8 darts was 6 triple 20s and triple 19. And then or 7 triple 20s, triple 19, and then I missed the double 12 pretty badly. But they had a car sitting out right off the stage, and I remember looking at the car going, "Oh, I'm about to win that."
So the thing is, don't bet on yourself and don't look at the car.
Right.
So let us bet on you, and everything will be good. So
I don't think they're allowed to bet on themselves now.
Oh no, unfortunately, no. Which they should be able to some degree. I mean, unless they're betting to lose.
I've never had any problem with Pete Rose because I was always told that, at least what I've heard, was that he always bet on his team. He never bet against his team. For example, I want you to bet on yourself.
Yeah, and I had the opportunity to meet him in Vegas years ago at a sports card store. I got to spend some time talking to him, and that's what he told me. He goes, I never bet on myself. I always bet on the team because I believed in my team to win. And to me, I'm like, you should bet on yourself. You should bet on the team. You should always go in expecting to win everything.
Exactly.
And that's like MVG and people that sometimes like Gerwin, people are like, oh, his attitude. I love his attitude. He is there to win, and pretty much at all costs when he's at the hockey. Off the hockey, nice guy. At the hockey, dude, I don't care who you are, if you're my friend or not. If you're my grandmother, I'm going to crush you. That's the way it goes. Right. Yeah. So.
Gerwin is certainly that first Grand Slam he won, it was like it almost appeared to me like he was harassing Gary while he was throwing, and that really upset me. And I wasn't. I mean, that's not okay. But I'm not so sure that that's even what happened now. I mean, I've watched him since then, and I mean, I think maybe Gary just got upset with his celebrations or whatever, which is that's Gary.
I've watched that a couple of times just for that case, and I really think just Gary was not used to that. Again, he's used to playing a specific way, and here's this guy, and I think it threw him off. And he was more upset during the whole thing. I think Gerwin took it a little bit. I think Gerwin saw I'm getting under his skin, so he took it up a notch.
Well, it was just that one time that Gary went for an outshot and he threw a dart and then stopped and turned around and talked to him like he had done something in the middle there.
Yeah,
where he was actually throwing, and that's when I formed the opinion that maybe he was doing something while he was actually throwing, which would not be okay. But
yeah, and who knows exactly, because we can't. There's no mic. It would be interesting if there was a mic right there. Yeah. So I'm curious. You've seen the gamemanship. I mean, we talk about like Phil Taylor, and there's the box. I've always heard that the box that's there but keeping players away is because Phil used to stand so close, to the player at the hockey, and just what's the gamemanship like? What have you done maybe, or what have you seen?
Several of them like to stand right on your heels, and that's one thing I experienced a lot when I was going over for Masters and stuff. Even in Vegas, when we had the WDF World Cup in Vegas, a lot of these countries would have like a cheering section, and they would scream and yell, and America never did that. I mean, we were very respectful during an individual sport, basically. Even in Vegas, I was like, the Americans were walking around watching the top players in the world. And while they had a group of people behind them cheering and screaming, while the other guys throwing, that was very common over there. I remember it was 90. I think it was 93 at the World Masters. I had been snubbed for the third time in 4 years for the BDO World Championships. America had 2 spots then. I was in the top 2, as I said, from like 89 to 95, and I had 1 invite in 92. But Tom Fleetwood didn't care for me very much, so that's why I didn't get the invites. His excuse was that he sent a list of 10 names, the top 10 names, to Ollie Croft, and Ollie would pick them. When I spoke to Ollie, he said, "Why would I do that? I just take whoever Tom sends me." And
it should be on merit. It should be on your abilities and what you've done.
That sort of thing doesn't happen anymore. But,
Progression. So, so crowds were a big thing. What other, I mean, did you ever see, I've heard of guys like that would come out in someone else's jersey color, just to kind of throw them off.
Where I was actually intended to go with that, in the, back then there was, I mean, the BDO's gone now, let's face it, but yeah, it had some importance for a while. But back then there's always been a playoff at the Masters to get into the World Championship for a spot or something. For the last several years, ever since I came back in 2007, it was everybody in the Masters got to play in that. Well, back before when I was playing in the 90s, only the top representative from each country got to play in that playoff. And after being snubbed for the World Championship, I was going to the Masters at the end of '93, and I'd already been snubbed for the World Championship at the beginning of '94. I received a call after being snubbed from the WDC asking if I wanted to play in their World Championship, which I think was their first one. And I said, sure, I'll play in that. And they said, well, the only condition is you can't play in this playoff at the Masters because the BDO World Championship was worth more at the time. I said, okay, I won't play in that playoff. So I didn't play in the playoff, and the second place guy from America got to play in it, which was Jimmy DeMoore. And instead of playing in the playoff, I sat behind Jimmy and cheered and screamed and did everything that had always happened against me. And he became the first person from America to get through that playoff and win a spot in the World Championship.
Nice. So darts is a team sport.
Well, it is. Yeah. I mean, I had several guys doing exactly what had always happened to me. I had several players threaten to come over the table to attack me and stuff. But that was, I was only doing what had always been done to me.
Yeah. Hey, fair is fair.
Right.
So, well, that's cool. So yeah, so darts is a team sport. So we should cheer on our fans. And I think today it's a different thing. And that's,
I mean, I don't really believe in that. I mean, I believe in team sports. Sure. I mean, in team sports, everybody gets paid, right?
Yeah.
What other individual sport do you see where in individual sports players are competing for their income? What other individual sport do you see where it's okay to just for the crowd to just go crazy while a guy's actually in the process of competing? There aren't any.
Yeah, I can't think of any. Yeah.
And that's the reason, because they're playing for their income.
Yeah.
Now I'm finding this pandemic thing interesting with the PDC, because there are certain players that I just can't even believe how well they can play with all this noise and everything going on. But now that that noise isn't going on, other players are stepping up, and some of those guys that play incredible when the noise is back there aren't playing quite as well, which I find ironic. It's really something.
Yeah, I've heard a couple of interviews with some of the players, and that's what they've been saying. Apparently the PDC's pumping noise in, but it's not the same.
No, it's smooth crowd noise. I mean, anybody can play in smooth crowd noise. It's that sharp voice that comes out as you're throwing it to double.
Yeah,
that has an effect,
Yeah, because they're able to control the noise, and it's not during the throw. And yeah, I mean, you've seen
even in the finals of the World Masters. I mean, there was like 3 sets or 2 sets apiece or something, and I'm throwing in a double to go ahead. And as I'm letting the dart go, some guy, I mean, there wasn't even that many people there. And some guy screamed out as I threw it the double, and I missed it by a half an inch. It's like,
yeah. Well, that's part of, I used to get frustrated with my kids when they were around me while I was practicing or playing. And I realized, I'm like, this is the best thing ever, is my kids under my feet or screaming or yelling or making noise, because it's setting me up for when that happens. Not that I'll ever be in that same position, but just
and by the way, just so it's clear, they don't just scream. They scream something insulting.
Yeah. I didn't want to really go there, vulgarity or,
Right.
Yeah, I'm sure that there's the lines are crossed.
It's
but again, one of the nice things about sports, at least this particular sport, is the fact that with all that's going on in the world and all the different sports and things, this one particular sport, you really see the unity of country. People get behind their countrymen who are playing like no other. I mean, you just don't see it. Even in cycling, there's just, because it's still a team sport, even though there's individuals, you've got a mix of different countries. In darts, man, like I'm rooting for Chuck and Danny tomorrow. Like I'm like Austria, whatever. Even though I like Menser, I'm like, no, you suck now, because I want to see the USA get into the third, fourth. I want to see them there on Sunday. So
nothing would please me more, I'll tell you.
Yeah, I mean, as much as Wales is going to win this thing, they just have the firepower. I would love to see them ousted and our guys win it. I mean, that would be the best thing ever.
Both of the top Scots backed out, didn't they? Or
yeah, they both did. So I think trying to think, there were like 5 or 6 players that basically backed out until next year. We won't even see them at the World.
Robert Thornton, and who's the other? Who's their?
Oh gosh, I've got it up here right here. Let me look.
Is it Henderson or?
So we got Henderson, and Thornton. I mean, that's gonna be fun though. Those are big, burly men.
Yeah. So and they can both definitely play. So who knows?
Yeah, I mean they've got a good chance to do it. They're not gonna. I gotta say, they're not gonna win it, but they've got a good chance to go deep.
Is MVG playing?
I'm sorry.
Is MVG playing?
Was he playing? I think he is. Yeah, he's playing with Danny Noppert. Which that'll be good. But Wales is Gerwyn Price and Johnny Clayton.
Right.
I mean, unless they have an completely off day, it's their tournament to lose.
I mean, Johnny just gave away that tournament the other day.
That was a counting error that I would make. So it's pretty bad. I mean, you do have England with Michael Smith and Rob Cross. If Rob Cross shows up, at the right time, and Michael Smith shows up at the right time, and they're able to balance that out,
if Chuck and Danny show up, you never know.
Oh yeah, I mean, for sure. And I think Danny's
average 100. They really, I've seen them both average 100 many times.
Yeah, and Danny's quick throw, I think that's going to throw a lot of people off. I think a lot of the play that speed that the two of them have, I think that's going to be a huge advantage for them if they can play it. That's the mental part of the sport that a lot of people don't grasp, is you've got to upset the other person just a little bit, get in their head a little, whether it's the pace of play or something you say ahead of time, or just the attitude you bring. Like if you look at Devin Peterson from South Africa, nicest guy in the world. Oh my gosh, he would give you the shirt off his back when he didn't have a shirt to give you. You get to the Aki, you look at his face and you see him. He's got the killer instinct. He is there. He doesn't care if it's his mom. He's going to win.
Right.
And that's one of the things I love about him. He's
I was surprised when he lost to Wade the other day. He's playing so good right now.
Oh, he is. But Wade, it's Wade.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just so methodical, doesn't care. The excitement he showed at the end of that match, and he does that every once in a while. It all comes out in that one. And then he goes, "Oh, wait a second. I'm sorry. I'm Wade." He's fun to watch. So, let's get back into more darts that you've played. I mean, you've been playing a ton. You've been doing the virtual stuff with the Bearded Dart Guy, and with the CDC, over at USA Darts Production, and you did play in the one tournament the Championships Dart Circuit had just recently, where I guess it was like 4 tournaments back to back, which you took one of those. What's the whole virtual thing been like? I mean, how's that been?
One of the CDC qualifiers? I didn't win one of those.
I thought you took one of those.
Darren.
Darren. I'm sorry. Darren took one and Baggish took the other 3. I'm sorry. Yeah, I was rooting for you. I was watching you play. I was rooting for you. Sorry about that.
Yeah, my first match was I averaged like 95 and got beat 6-2 or by Baggish.
Yeah, Baggish was on fire.
Oh yeah, I'm on a double. He takes a 161 out.
he was on fire. Yeah, and then that's when, and Darren mentioned the situation he's dealing with. I'm trying to think of what it was again, but that weekend, what was it? Vertigo.
Oh yeah.
So, but I mean, what's the virtual? I mean, game been like? Are you enjoying it?
Not as much as in person by any means, but actually that remote darts league that they did out in England there, I did enjoy that. But they made that they had an app they sent. They did it all through Skype, and they had an app that or actually it was just a list of website links, and you just on your day there was a link for you. You just clicked on it, and your whole screen came up as a scoreboard. And all you did is throw your darts and say what you hit, and they confirmed it with the camera. And then when you walk back, it was a split screen. Your score is on the right, the other person's score is on the left. You didn't have to fiddle with the score at all. I mean, they just took care of it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That makes it a little bit easier. What's it? I mean, so players are now calling their score, so there's a slight difference, a little change, and the pace of play is different.
We're doing a lot of calling the scores. We're pulling the darts out a certain way to make sure everybody can see them on the camera, and then we're punching in the score. I mean, there's a lot to do between shots. It's not hard, but it's just it takes away from the complete focus on the game.
As I say, changes the rhythm up. But have you? I mean, you've been playing quite a few matches. Have you found that it's helping the game? Are you playing people that you typically wouldn't play?
I've found that there are certain people that seem to be incredible online. That I don't know if they're just that comfortable in their home, or just with not face-to-face competition. There's some people that are really thriving with that. I don't feel like I'm really thriving with it, but
Yeah. Well, I think that I've mentioned this on other shows. I think there's a fracture now within the sport. We're going to see two types of darts. We're going to have the in-person live stuff, and then this virtual thing is going to take on a life of its own. It already has.
Is this going to continue? And unless there's two cameras set up, I don't really see how it can get to be that that big of a takeover or whatever.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I've mentioned that. I think like with Championships Dart Circuit, they could certainly, once we get back to live, if ever, they can have that, and then they can do the virtual thing. But they're going to have to pick a number of players, whether it's 25, whatever, and send them two cameras.
Yeah, how many cameras did you say you could have at the same time?
I mean, on here, I think I have up to 18.
Yeah, so that would be no problem.
Yeah, well, like I have two cameras set up, for my thing, and I play in a league, and nobody does the two camera thing. We just have the camera on the board, but I have multiple cameras set up, and of course with Dart Connect now, they've got the ability to have that other camera. I think we'll get there. I think someone's going to get it, and you're going to have a virtual tour, a virtual game, and you're going to have virtual stars. You're going to have guys that play well in their garage, that suck at the hockey, in live. And then you're going to have the live situation. I really think we're going to see that over the next 2-3 years.
I think with multiple cameras, I think it could be a major money. You could have leagues for a lot of money. You could have big money tournaments.
Exactly, and we're seeing some really killer tournaments. There's the WDF that's been going on with USA Darts Production for a little while now, and we're seeing there's a young lady who's 14, I think. Who I think she played yesterday or the day before. I missed the match. But, I mean, literally you can have teenagers doing this because they're not – they don't have to fly somewhere. They're not missing school. They're not in the pub. So excited to see where it goes. Now, I've already figured out how to cheat if you just the one camera. I just bring someone like you in or someone else that's much better than me, let them throw, and I'll just retrieve the darts.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah.
I just got to find someone that's willing to do that for me, and then I'll win my league. which the president of my league is listening right now, so things are going to change.
What about the magic you can do with the cameras?
Yeah. Well, that's not JD. That's Matt. Really, it is. So, I'm excited to see where that goes. But so it's not your favorite thing, but you've been doing it, and you've had some success with the virtual situation. You know,
I missed the RDL by 2 spots, I think, and I missed the bearded dart guys by 1 spot. So
yeah, and he's got another one coming up, so there's room. How so Matt Campbell's been doing really well out of Canada, and of course he's with Jeff Smith over there to represent his country, and of course he's been doing really well in regards to the virtual situation. You got to play with him in the live situation with CDC. What's he like in person? I've never seen him in a live situation. Really hadn't heard much about him until the virtual thing.
Right. Well, I mean, I played against him twice. He beat me in Philly pretty good. He beat me in Chicago, and I missed 4 darts at 40 to win the match, and he punished me. But he actually I like I haven't won any CDC events since my heart attack in 2018, and he actually made his first appearance that weekend the first weekend that I missed when I had my heart attack. So that it wasn't. I didn't really know him when I was winning all that stuff. He kind of came back he came up after I stopped winning him, basically. And he's been quite prominent the last couple of years. But I'm very impressed with him, and Baggish is probably the American that I'm most impressed with right now. But there's this guy out of Newfoundland, Jacob Taylor. I mean, he's online. He's playing unbelievable. Just incredible.
Yeah. Jacob Taylor is just and that's the thing is he could be the superstar of the online virtual situation.
Well, I think Sharon means to get him over to a Q school this year and see how he does there.
Q school is going to be interesting this year. However, they play that one out because typically it's a mass of people. How they're going to situate that one out? Are you? It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting.
I think he's determined to get him and Baggish both at Q school this year. So we'll see.
Nice. Speaking of which, I want to make sure that you get the opportunity to talk about sponsors, your sponsors, and so forth. So if you want to take a second, thank your sponsors and talk a little bit about who sponsors the Eagle.
Oh yeah, well, I appreciate Dynasty Darts. They make all my barrels. Dynasty Japan, and I'm on my 4th generation, and they've been like the most precise darts I've ever had made for me, and I've had a lot of darts made for me over the years. They just every set I get. I have gram scales and stuff that I weigh them out with, and they're all incredibly close, and just the feel of them. It's like they're very, very precisely made.
Nice.
And the L-Style products. Anybody that hasn't used the L-Style products, I haven't had a Robin Hood in 11 years now or something. And they're just incredible. It's just it's really high quality stuff. And of course, Dart Brokers here somewhere. Dart Brokers, this is the place to buy all this stuff. They're one of the top distributors in America, and they are doing a lot to back darts in America. So
yes, they are. They certainly are. So. Well, nice. I'm glad that we could get that out there. So, some Dynasty Darts, some L-Style, and Dart Brokers, guys. Make sure that you're checking those brands out because they do help, the players out there like Larry, who's been at it for a while and will hopefully be playing for quite a while longer. Hopefully, we'll get back to live darts, and those that are new to darts during the pandemic will be able to have an opportunity to see you play. All right, let's dive back into some of the stories of darts. I'm curious about going back to the 80s darts. What was it like? Because that was more the pub play. That was when guys actually drank and smoked while they were playing. That's the bit of history I think we might lose some of that if we don't talk about it. So I'm kind of curious what that was like. The BDO and the power days.
Well, to me, the important thing is for people to know how big darts was in the 80s compared to today. I mean, the National Sporting Goods Association ranks darts currently as the 30-something most common activity Americans do. In the early to mid 80s, it was like the 5th or 6th most common activity. Okay, it was much more popular. The North American Open had 15 years in a row of over 500 entries in men's singles. People traveling to Vegas to play against the top guys in the world. Okay, to play 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 5, 301, and it was huge. I mean, the first place prize money was $5,000. I mean, it's probably got to be closer to 20 grand today.
Yeah.
And there was at least 15 tournaments that paid, $2 grand or more back then, which would be, I mean, that would be like having a tour today that you had like, 15 to 20 tournaments that paid over $6,000-7,000 for first, up to $15,000-20,000 for first, because there was also the Windy City Open, which paid $5 grand for first, Cleveland Extravaganza, which paid $5 grand for first. I mean, darts was much bigger, and the crowds were much bigger. It was nothing at all to have 300 plus entries in just an open singles, and there was quite often there wasn't. Most of those tournaments didn't have 2 doubles. Most of them didn't have 2 singles. They usually had 1 doubles for each gender, 1 singles for each gender. A mixed event was common. Sometimes there was a blind draw on a Friday night. Sometimes it was a pro shoot. And all of them just about had a 4-person team. And even the 4-person teams paid quite well. But that was the most fun event of the whole weekend. One of my favorite stories from back then, though, is a guy who eventually in the late 80s became my dart partner for several years with Jerry Umberger. At the time, he was bringing on some new guy called Rick Nye at the time, and they were kind of tearing up the whole East Coast. But at my first Washington Open, I go in, it's like 1982 or something, and I'm watching the pro shoot, and Jerry is playing Conrad Daniels in the finals, and Conrad was a very slow player anyway. But at the time, Jerry was just dating his wife Gloria, and Conrad would raise his hand and like just draw it back as slow as he could possibly draw it back. And I'm talking like 5 seconds or more from the time he brought his hand up before he released the dart. Jerry would he'd go up and throw 140, he'd come back and stand at the table facing away from the dartboard, just talking to Gloria. And, like a couple minutes later, she'd say, "Jerry, it's your shot." And he'd turn around and go fire in 3 more darts, come back. And he won pretty easy. I mean, he I think it was like $2 grand for first or something. But it was the first time I'd ever seen Jerry or Conrad. And I walked up to Jerry and said, "Mr. Umberger, I got to tell you, this was amazing to me. I mean, I've heard about you, and I now I'm really a big fan." I said, and the thing that impressed me the most about what I just saw was how well you dealt with the games he was playing because of how long he was taking and everything. And I said, how well you dealt with the games he was playing. And he just snapped his head around and looked back at the dartboard and goes, "Why? What was he doing?"
It's like, hey, I was busy over here, and oh yeah, I got to throw my darts now.
It just cracked me up.
Some people have it, and some people don't. So,
right.
But yeah, it's. I mean, I think we lose the perspective of the '80s being such a big darts thing, and I didn't realize that that it was such. I was a kid.
Well, the implementation of cricket in tournaments that really kind of killed darts in America.
I've never heard that before. So
what cricket did was it all the tournaments, all the $20,000 tournaments were still $20,000 tournaments after they put cricket in, but it doubled the amount of events and cut all the prize funds in half, and doubled the entry fees, but cut all the prize funds in half. I mean, bottom line is all the turnouts really started to drop after that because first place went from being 3 or 4 months worth of salary for the average person to, now it's not even a week's salary in most tournaments.
Yeah, it's fun money. It's drinking money now. That's interesting. I've never heard that perspective. That the idea of, or the entrance into cricket, basically, and it makes sense. Yeah, you would have that many more people to pay out because you've got that many more games or winners.
When I played a cricket game, when I even have a chalkboard over here I could show you, but it's from the 70s through 85 or whatever. When you had a chalkboard that had cricket on it, it went from 20s to 10s at T, D, and bullseyes, and 3 and a bet. You did. I mean, it was kind of like Brimmer Road and cricket together, but it didn't go to 20 to 15s. It went 20 to 10s, and you threw for triples, you threw for doubles, you threw for 3 and a bet. It was a practice game. That's all it was. And they made up this game 20 to 15 with bulls to have something short that they could put in tournaments to double the amount of money coming in.
It's good for the darts promoters or those running the tournament, but I could see where that would, it thins the prize money out and makes it, it went from being an actual sport to, the bar game because of that. I can see that. I never saw that before. I never heard that before. I never thought about it that way.
Obviously, it didn't happen to England, and their darts kept growing.
Yeah. I talk about cricket to some of the players over there, and they're like, "What are you talking about?" I don't like. Oh, that's a practice game. Oh yeah, I know what you're talking now.
It's called Mickey Mouse, right?
Yeah, it's called Mickey Mouse.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's an interesting perspective. Never would have gathered that. So here in America, what we need to do is separate these situations and have cricket leagues and have O1 leagues and build this back up, because I think we've got the players. We've got young players that are coming up that are phenomenal.
I will tell you with absolute confidence that there were a lot more dart players in America in the 80s than there are today. A lot. Many, many times more.
Wow. See, and again, I was a kid. We played at my house, but we never watched it. It wasn't on TV or anything that we were watching, and I never heard about it. My dad would go play at Camp Pendleton with his buddies.
Just ask how many people were in the league in Southern California back in the 80s.
Yeah, and I've heard that there were leagues. There was a lot more. And when I got into darts, the league style of play a few years ago, a while back, it took me forever to find a league to join.
Right.
Yeah. So that's why we need the history. That's why we need to understand, because, we need to understand that, hey, this was something much bigger. We need to get back there. And what do we do to get back there? How do we make that happen?
To my knowledge, North America, U.S. and Canada are the only two places, because it was really huge in Canada too. The only two places in the world that I know of that darts has shrunk in the last 25, 30 years. I mean, everywhere else in the world, it has grown immensely.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you look at Europe and what's going on over there. You look at Asia, and oh my gosh. Right. I mean, everybody in Asia carries darts around with them. Right. It's your wallet and your darts go with you. I have a lot of friends over in Korea, and they all play darts. It's an everyday thing.
Let me rephrase that, because the playing of darts in England probably was bigger 25, 30 years ago than it is today. But the awareness of darts between playing and spectatorship and everything is much bigger everywhere else in the world than it was 25, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Except for North America.
The sports. And yeah, because the PDC and all of that, there's that split that took place and how that became about. Over here, from my historical research, we didn't, the BDO was big. The ADO, so much bigger. So, yeah, it's as I'm thinking about it, I'm like, that's kind of sad that we've allowed this to go the way that we did, and how do we bring it back? How do we make it a strong sport again?
Well, I'm not going to name any names, but we had two people in this country that became president of the ADO, saying that it could be better and better and better. And both of them kind of used that position to make private deals and went off and did something else. They resigned as president of the ADO and went off and did something else with private deals that they negotiated as president of the ADO.
And that's sad. It's sad for darts. And I think about it. I'm like, how do we make this sport become, I'd love to see it in the schools. Like I talk about my son, you've talked about your son, and you would make him chalk for both sides. My son loves the number aspect and he's just so into it. It's like, how do we bring it, do we get into the schools? Do you want to give sharp objects to kids though?
James's second grade teacher was so impressed with his math that she had me come into their school, into the courtyard in the middle, hang a dartboard on a tree, and had James show all of his classmates and from like 3 other second grade classes. They all gathered in this courtyard and had James explain the game of darts to them all.
Hey, I think physical ed teachers should be doing darts. Right. Why not? I mean, there's physical aspect to it. Whether you believe it or not, standing at the hockey for length of time and walking back and forth is a workout. Right. Try 18 hours of it, guys. I can tell you, man, it'll kick your butt. So I just want to bring that in real quick because we're getting to a point where we got to land the plane. Unfortunately, I've got to run, or I would sit here for 2 or 3 hours and talk darts with you. I have to take my kids to school because my wife's going to the dentist. But your son. So you and I were sharing some stories about kids prior. I would love for you to share the story you were telling me about your son and him winning, kind of his first tournament type situation. Because I think that's awesome, to those stories. So could you share that with everybody? Because I know you shared it with me.
Well, I mean, he honestly, he hasn't been nearly as interested in darts in the last few years as he was earlier. But we were playing darts in the house when he was 6 years old. At 6, we went to Stanford and played in the national youth event, and in the 12 and under group, he won it when he was 6 years old. And he I forget exactly what he hit, but he hit something in which left him 81 or 83. Hit something which left him 83, and I'm looking at the board. I'm even kind of starting to step forward to tell him what to throw at. And before I even have a chance to do anything, I mean, he throws trip 17, double 16. It's like, and wins the game and wins the national title. I'm like, holy cow. But
that's 6. That's awesome.
Probably before he turned 12. I mean, by the time he turned 12, we played in dozens of youth adult, and I'm sure we won more than half of the ones we played in. I mean, he was just really incredible. But he's favored baseball, and he's still got really good eye-hand coordination. He can still throw tons and tons of 40s, but he's just not as into it as he was.
They all come back around. Don't worry, Larry. They all come back around. So the team sports are fun when you're a teenager, but and that's the other thing is darts is much more of a team sport than we give it credit for, because if you think about when you go to a tournament, you're all hanging out with your buddies, your friends. It is a big family. It's a big community, and we support each other. And as much as we want to crush the guy at the hockey, at least the majority of us, when we walk away from that, we're friends again. We can, even if there's been some shenanigans, we can kind of hug it out, so to speak, and get past it. And we even see that in the PDC. We've seen Gerwin and Peter, during the World Championship. There was some strife that came off, and since then they're like, hey, it's my best bud, we're good to go. So it's the beauty of the sport. The other thing I love about the sport is it's a as far as gender goes, that doesn't matter.
I'm going to inject one thing there. It's a little easier to do that when you're making the kind of money they're
making. Okay, yeah. That's true. That's very true. And that's the other thing. And I wish we could spend more time and get into this, because I think that's unfortunately the downside to sports in general, and our sport is the money side. But once you bring the big money in, that's when you have the issues, because money changes people. Yeah. So we need to find a way to jacked.
But the sport doesn't. I don't care what. Back in I remember having this argument back with Dave Kelly back in the early '90s. He was telling me, Larry, darts it's boring. There's no way it's ever going to be a spectator sport. And I'm like, it's not boring to us. And I said, but as far as the other people that aren't us, it just depends on how much money they're making. I mean, if the biggest show on television right now can be these girls opening up briefcases, and that turns out to be the biggest. It's all about the money, and the PDC to me is just proven that. If you put up enough prize money, everybody's going to watch.
Yeah. Oh, it's true. If the money's there, people will be interested in it, and people will try to become the next superstar to make the money.
Definitely generates incredible talent. The talent that's in Europe and England right now is just phenomenal.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've got a 14-year-old that's playing in the WDF, and she's from Russia. Where does that talent come from if there's not, the ability to make some money at it? So, yeah. Hey, Larry, again, man, I wish I didn't have to end this and go and run because, again, I could spend hours just hanging out and talking, but I gotta kill the show because I gotta go do the family thing.
I understood, Matthew.
It's been a huge pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much. I've been trying to wrangle your wife on because I want to get her perspective of being the wife of a professional darts player. And I think I've got her snagged for maybe next week. We'll see if Sharon will come on and give us her perspective of the situation. But again, thank you.
Different than mine.
So thank you so much for being on the show. There is a coffee mug in the mail on its way to you because Sharon gave me your address. So I sent everybody a gift for being on the show. So thank you so much for being on the show. I'm going to have you back on. I'm going to try and get you and a couple of the other guys that have been doing this for a little while, maybe get Darren on and so forth. And we'll just have a roundabout and just enjoy talking darts. So
yeah, Darren's probably the one guy that I feel worse about the direction that darts has gone in the last 3 years. Because to me, he's the one guy that had the most taken away from him because he's just been phenomenal,
Yeah.
And hasn't had that much to play for.
Yeah, completely agree with you. He's such a good guy from what I know of him. We tried to have him on the show. And unfortunately, due to some medical issues, he wasn't able to do the show, and we keep chatting back and forth. It's going to happen, but yeah, he's super talented and just a really good guy. And I hope that he can get the vertigo thing situated, and we can get back to darts, and he can show us all his game because it's really there. He's a good player. So.
Yep.
Well, Larry, again, thank you for being on the show. Everybody, thanks for catching the show, watching. Guys, support Larry and his brands. Make sure that you guys are helping out. And again, check out Michael Holdman. Go to his Facebook page. He's got a link on there. Go to the Atomic Darts page. There's a link there. Buy something from that Yahoo shopping situation. Let me know. Yahoo, Amazon, whatever, same thing. But let me know. And you guys are going to be entered in. I've got a set of the threes here to give away at Soft Tip. And a bunch of other stuff that we're going to give away for that. So thanks again, Larry. Have a wonderful day, and I'll be chatting with you soon.
All right, Matthew. It was fun.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, everybody.